Greetings! Welcome to the Devlog for the last experimental build, finally, of Update 120 of Hot Dogs, Horseshoes, and Hand Grenades. We're going to start, as always, with a quick sound check. Make sure your speakers aren't up too high. Wonderful. So what have we got for you this week? Well, we are just about wrapping up a bunch of the core tools that we have been trying to finally get moved on over to main branch for our 1.0 release. And so I want to go over those today. We've got some take and hold related stuff, and we got something toolbox related. Let's do the toolbox thing first. So the first thing I wanted to show you, let's go ahead and pull out our toolbox, is that we have put together essentially finally a toolbox version of this old dev tool. I made this a million years ago. It only sits in a couple of scenes, and that's because it was coded kind of unsafe. Like, it can do a few things, it can break some other game modes, and it doesn't follow certain good design patterns. I've added so many SOSIGs over the years that the way that I built this menu, this can't even spawn all of them. So we finally put a version of the SOSIG spawning tool into the toolbox that you can use everywhere, that has a bunch more options. And then if we go over here, we can pick actually every one of the SOSIG types that are in the game, including any ones that you folks design yourself using the H3VR Studio tool. I'm going to be boring about it though and just pick shot dogs and just grab myself a little scout here. Confirm. We can pick, just like with that tool, what IFF we want, what behavior mode. So if I want these to start by like wandering around, spawn activated is true. I can just pull out my stylus here. Just have a couple wandering SOSIGs over there. Notice that this defaults to having them selected right out of the gate. So that way we can change their behavior mode. Let's see, it's in wander now. We can, that's it, assault, guard point. We can set a guard point using our stylus like so. Set guard look at point. Don't look at me, it's weird. There we go. Now they're looking at that way. We can set their assault point, and of course, the best button in the entire thing, we can just blow them up. So yeah. So there you have it. That is this tool that is now in there. As I said, it's designed to be a more robust version of that one that does almost all of the same things, but is actually safe for every scene in the game that actually utilizes and allows the toolbox to spawn. So that is in there right there. Moving along to some take and hold stuff, I have finished my updating of all of our boss encryptions except for the last one. You're going to have to wait till next week, till July 3rd? Yeah, July 3rd for the final redo of our refractive encryption. But let's take a quick look at what has changed about our other ones. So the polymorphic, which you saw last week, has been modified with a bit of adjustment from what you folks, based upon feedback of people playing. For one, it has a little bit of corrective force now, so it will no longer drift endlessly in other directions. It also doesn't instantaneously rotate when you shoot. There we go. There we go. Ah, goodness. Let's finish this off correctly. Boink. Ah! Would help if I actually used my optic, but this close up. Oh, no. We're just messing it up. There we go. Very nice. Very nice. So that should hopefully be more, less glitchy. I did some major changes to our cascading and orthogonal encryption, and this is, as I mentioned last time, I tried to pull the randomization that just feels like you're being BS'd sometimes, especially when you're trying to compete with someone else in a very narrow score range, and made these more deterministic but interesting. The cascading one has gotten a very big change. I'm going to spawn the limited ammo versions of these, mainly because I'm lazy right now, and I'm showing them off. So this is the new cascading encryption. It actually spawned in the incorrect orientation compared to how this actually spawns in the mode, but it'll still work here. We shoot it once, and it breaks apart into several more targets. Limited ammo, it's 3. Full ammo, it's 6. and you can see that these do glitch through the environment a little bit. The reason for this is that these are not moving like a volume, they're moving like a raycast, and that's to make sure that with all of the totally scuffed collision that can be in mod maps as well, that these will not have weird corner cases. Let's see if we can. Oh, and that one split again into 3. I should have warmed up before I filmed this devlog. This is pathetic, Anton. Folks are watching you screw this up. Wonderful. Got him. So that is the way the new cascading encryption works. As I said, the orientation is a little bit different when it actually spawns in the mode. It's less up, down, left, right, and is more at a diagonal. Do note that this one as well was designed to deal with all sorts of corner cases that arise in weird rooms, in weird maps, and mod maps. So it has a bunch of distance limitations. I really tested this as aggressively as I could in weird situations to make sure that one of those targets doesn't get caught outside the room or break in some sort of way. It's always challenging designing stuff knowing that other people are building on top of what you make. So I've tried to take that into account. And then the final change, which this is going to start getting angry and shooting lasers at us immediately, is the modified version of orthogonal. Before I spawn this, the way orthogonal worked before was that it basically would just randomly wander around a room. And this had 2 problems. One, when it just swept at you with a laser, didn't really feel like that was occurring because of anything you could predict. It was just kind of random. And it could also get stuck up in different parts of the level. It doesn't do this anymore. It now rotates through a fixed, predictable sequence, and its linear movement is entirely based on when and how you hit it. So here we go. Let's do the limited ammo version of this very angry encryption. Let's let it rotate once. Okay, cool. So we'll just let it rotate for a moment. It's going to do it every 4 seconds to begin with. Whew. I'm glad that was as high up as it was. XYZ, negative XYZ. And then when we shoot it, it's going to move in the closest orthogonal direction to where we strike it. So if we want it to move down, we shoot in the lower part of it. Okay, now we have to wait till it rotates. Oh. That way I'll send it in that direction. Oh. Boom. And taken apart. So yeah, so if you practice enough and keep track of its rotation pattern, you'll be able to predict the next way it's going to rotate. And as I said before, where you strike the target now determines which direction it moves in linearly. And this, as I said, these changes are all about just trying to make the decisions that you make while playing the mode rewarding, and actually to sort of widen the skill gap at the top between folks who are well practiced and pay attention and can shoot accurately, and those who don't and can't. So let's jump out and talk about the other stuff that is in this build, as well as what's going to be going on over the next week. Yo, out of VR. So what else is going on? As I said before, a bunch of the stuff that we tried to get working this week was about responding to feedback from those of you folks who are trying to design custom take and hold characters and their related data structures. So a couple of the things got in. On the item side, I went back and I reclassified a bunch of stuff that were sort of miscellaneous objects that were just called tools. Things like night vision goggles, locomotion tools, fire sources, light sources, tripods, rangefinders, etc. And I actually gave them a formal identifier as a category. And so what that means 2 things. One, it means like if you just want to, when building a pool for a character, want to just be like all the night vision goggles, you can now just assign that as a generic instead of having to like manually pick each one of the object IDs. And secondly, it means that any modders who've added anything to those categories, it means that those items, as long as they classify them as I've done now in the build, can be picked up automatically by those take and hold object table definitions. So those it means it's future proof. Beyond that, there was another user request to be able to blacklist items out of an object table. So what you can do now is you can basically be like, I want every machine pistol with between this much ammo and this much ammo that's this size with this ammo range. and get that list generatively. But if you're like, I do not want this one item that shows up, this frequently happens for in Take and Hold. There are definitely a couple object tables that are almost perfect, but because of just parameter filtering, you get one-off items that you're like, that shouldn't be in there. You now have the ability as a designer to control that and blacklist a specific object directly via its FVR object ID. So that is there. We've got a couple more things that are in that sort of category that have been requested by some of the folks who've made a lot of really great custom Take and Hold characters. They're still on the to-do list for the next week or so. And then in addition to that, there's some added parameter fields for folks who want to really tune how many targets appear when they're specifically playing limited ammo mode. In Take and Hold, you can now set that parameter separately than if you're playing on spawn lock mode. So yeah, and then there's just a bunch of other miscellaneous fixes. A couple things that just took way too many weeks for me to figure out what was actually broken are now in here. Yeah. Then beyond that, so what's going on this week? I was originally going to do this section of the devlog like with a script. I was going to outline it out for myself. And then I realized, no, we're just going to kind of do this off the top of the head because it's a heavy week. This is technically the last week that H3VR 1 will be in early access, whatever that means at this point. I don't know how a game can be in early access for 10 years and have that term make any sense. If you're like, how did you get here with it? The answer would be like 1 week at a time. It's a little harrowing, like staring at, I've got this Google Doc where I keep my change log and I keep my running to-do lists. And of course it's filled with just like random and sketches and ideas. And oh, wouldn't it be cool if you could do X and Y things that have accreted over years and years. And, this is especially a weird project with relationship to that because, I came into, to be perfectly frank, if we rewind the clock over a decade, if you had asked me back in 2016 how long you expected H3VR to be as a project, I mean, I probably would have expected it to have been something like 6 months, if I'm being honest. I expected that, well, the way I thought it was going to play out back then was that there'd be this like burst of interest at the beginning and some folks would be like, oh, that's neat. And they would buy it as they just got their vibes. And we'd add a few more things, but the sales would sort of trickle on. And then people would sort of move on to sort of like bigger games, more visually polished games, more traditional games. And instead the opposite happened, which is that I kept doing weird and wild experiments. Oh, let's see if this works with realistic guns. Let's see if this works with realistic guns. Here's some more of this, some more of that for years and years. And folks kept coming in, and it's been wonderful, but it also has always felt weird because this has always been explicitly a project that has been about not having a plan and about just sort of following my nose with things and, seeing what's fun and having a great time and just enjoying the process of building VR and about like finding out what's compelling in VR. But obviously the other edge to that sword is that there's no roadmap to like how you bring something like that to a close. Especially just from like an emotional standpoint, and especially given that I'm a sentimental softie. And so this entire moment has a huge amount of weight for me. And it's part of the reason why, because we have such a large community, we have a ridiculously sized modding community. I mean, there's thousands of mods up on Thunderstore. Some of you know that, or, the way that I have felt in relationship to all of that has changed dramatically over time. Earlier on in the project's life, I was, especially someone who didn't really understand modding and someone who's like very protective of this first big creative thing out in the world that, I had worked on. I was very protective of it. I was very defensive against modding, and slowly my sort of heart warmed to it. And I met more and more people who did that kind of stuff, and they had the patience to explain to me what it was all about and what it what it meant to sort of generate that conversation. And it's part of the reason why between the H3VR studio tools, which is still with the sort of like within the bounds of creation, within the game and within the tool set, and then everything we've done over the past year or two to try to make things as smooth as possible, interfacing with the stuff the mod community has done, it's been an incredible learning experience. And honestly, it's one of the, it's so much of, I have to just give the deepest thanks to Nathan, who is on our team. If you don't know Nathan, he's the one who has authored a whole bunch of the sort of core mod frameworks for the game, and has been my like chief diagnostician when something has gone wrong in relationship to modding for quite a while now, to help me figure out how to navigate that path. He's working on H3VR 2. His wisdom throughout all of this is going to help, has already shaped and is going to shape how we're going to approach modding and mod support for the second game. But yeah, so it's just to say that like this project has been I don't even know where I was going with half of this. I'm in full-blown ramble mode, so thanks for following along for this. But yeah, so I would say that this has been, just a creative journey that has been richer and has taken me in directions that I never expected it to. And it's one of the reasons why, because I owe so much to the community, and this game wouldn't be what it is without its community, why it felt so apropos to make our update 120, our 1.0 update, about tools for the community and about really bringing the sort of core API of the game to a point of solidity, so that going forward after this 1.0 update, I'm not going to kick anyone's sandcastle over anymore. It's safe to build on and do whatever. And anything, it's not to say that we're not going to push any more code updates. There's going to be bugs to fix, especially with the creation tools. There's going to be bugs to fix, but we're going to just make sure that after this 1.0 update that we keep very close track of all of those changes. We're going to publish them as API notes with each update, so it's much clearer to everyone who is doing mod work what is changing with each patch and each bug fix, so that just this remains as robust as possible going into the future. Because there's a decade plus of work in here, and there are now many, many years of incredible work done by our wonderful community built atop it. And, I have no idea where VR is going to go next. We have the Steam frame coming out soon, so there's going to be some specific stuff for that we're going to have to do, mainly just like performance settings and things like that. But the goal, obviously, in long term, despite being in 1.0 and being out of early access, is just to keep this old creaky ship of a game still running on Unity 5.67, running for as long as we can, as long as Valve cares to keep Steam VR running. Kind of like the end of Babylon 5. I hope to be the last one there turning out the lights when it all no longer works. Because I've never worked on anything as long as I have with this. So yeah, so to come all the way back around, what is going on for this next week? My plan is even though, you folks know that I've been working on this and working a ton on H3VR 2, I'm kind of pushing all the H3VR 2 stuff off my plate for 1 week, just holistically, so I can just have a nice sentimental week, once again, purely devoted to H3. I've got a bunch of goofy things planned. I'm going to probably film a bunch of YouTube shorts as I work on a couple goofy things as we prepare this for pushing the 1.0 update on. Let me just double check and make sure the camera's right. Yep, it'll be on the 3rd of July, so that the game will be up on the main branch and 1.0 ready for the 4th of July. We'll have something very 4th of July appropriate added into the game for that day. I think you'll all enjoy it. So yeah, so that's what this next week is going to be. So what that means is, if you're on the experimental branch, just count on the fact that I probably am not going to wait all the way till July 3rd to push that build. I'm probably going to just push a couple incremental builds as I stuff some last things in, tune a couple scenes, and just honestly, I'm going into this week in pod, like I've got some planned things, some things that need to happen, but I'm also trying to go into this week radically with to end the game like I began the game, which is not having much of a plan and just following my nose and doing a couple things completely spur of the moment. Nathan's going to be doing some just off the cuff stuff with me. Stefan, who's made a bajillion things for the game over the years, is standing by for me to just be like, hey, I got this crazy idea for an object. Can you just make this real quick for me in the day? And we'll just see what happens. That feels like just thematically the correct way to bring this to the end of this chapter for the game. So for all of you who are still here listening and watching after this ramble, thanks so much, and I look forward to seeing how many things explode with you when we push this onto the main branch in 7 more days. So I will see you all then, and I'll see you all throughout this week with some little shorts, video adventures for this last week of early access for H3VR 1. So, wish you the best. See you soon. Peace.